Well, John, thank you so much for coming back, making time to share your insights from across the globe.
Yes.
You've just been to, I believe, to New York.
And to San Francisco.
And
Yes.
you attended the Singularity University.
Yes, I did. I was privileged enough to get accepted to the EP, the executive program that they run 4 times a year. They have hundreds of thousands of applications from around the world, and 100 people get chosen 4 times a year. And like I said, very privileged to have been accepted. And I attended a 6-day course with the brightest minds on earth, lecturing us from everything from 3D printing to human genetics to agriculture genetics to the future in every possible way.
And I believe it was led by Peter Diamandis.
Peter Diamandis was there, Ray Kurzweil was there, Amin Tufani was there, John Hagel. I mean, the who's who of thought leadership in as far as exponential technologies we were privileged enough to get lectured to. We even had a NASA astronaut talking to us about the space station. We had the gentleman that actually ran the first 3D printed tool on the space station. He was there as well, lecturing us about the future of 3D printing.
So you spent 6 days in class in one group, right?
13 and a half hours of lectures a day, which is quite
Okay.
taxing. But with some remarkable people, I've made some really good friends. Everybody from the CEO of Gucci to a general in the Marine of the American government to the CEO of Walmart, South America and Central America, the CEO of Christchurch Airport. I mean, it was a varied bunch of people from around the world, all eager to share the excitement about the future. And it was a very uplifting and very optimistic week that we spent together, becoming friends and also learning some incredible insights.
So tell us, what does the future hold?
Well, you know, the major topic that they were speaking about is the fact that the Moore's law is dead. And this idea that computation is doubling on itself on an annual basis and halving in price is being broken. Quantum computing is quite literally curving straight off the exponential curve. The ability that quantum computing has in order to fast track our computation power is off the charts. In fact, nobody really can measure how fast it's going to be doing things. The godfather of quantum computing, who wasn't there, but they used some of his work, and he was saying, one of his quotes was, if we had to get traditional computers to solve what a quantum computer can solve, it would take the lifetime of the universe. That's how much faster quantum computing is. So quantum computing is billions of times faster. It uses a totally different way of computational power. It is millions of times less hungry for power. So it's the size of my thumbnail, which is the computing power in that piece of chip is faster than the fastest supercomputer on Earth that we have right now in China called Tian-2. And Tian-2 requires its own nuclear reactor to power up. That's how hungry it is. But you can imagine how fast it is. But this quantum computer is billions of times faster. Billions. And the size of my size of my thumbnail.
So when will that come into reality?
So at the moment, they are working with it quite extensively, and it already is available to a lot of people. IBM's Watson is the most famous one that's available, but D-Ware, Quantum Qubit One, there's many different organizations working with it. We had the chairman of one of the top quantum computing software companies lecture us, and he was saying that they have been trying for ages to balance 2 of these chips on top of each other to double up the quantum computing power. And they've been struggling, but they're close. He says, but then he went to South Korea and he saw a company that had done 20 on top of each other. Something his company thought would take 20 years that has already been done in South Korea. And he said this really shook him, because he had no idea that humanity could balance or create a stacking of these chips in this short period of time. And that's what he was telling us, is that our expectation of the curve of exponential technologies is actually defunct. And it's not going to be going to Moore's law, because that's going to be almost obsolete.
So tell us, how will future leaders benefit from quantum computing?
So the main focus for leadership is AQ, as agility quotient. That is the thing they were talking about the most at Singularity University. IQ and your left brain will be replaced by AI. And that is just an accepted norm now. Anything that you can compute, it will compute faster, 10 times quicker, more variations than you can, as human beings, we can even imagine. So that's the first thing. So we've got to understand over the next 10 years, we had Ray Kurzweil in a very calm voice say to us that by 2029, we'll all have digital neocortexes implanted in our heads. It'll be humanity's evolution into this next phase of who we are. And this is by 2029 or 2027. That's where he says this is going to be happening. And so
meaning you'll be online all the time.
All the time. Always on, always connected, never lose memory, never have to memorize anything. We'll know every market and all that. I mean, it's just take quantum computing and combine it with artificial intelligence, which is growing at an exponential rate. Combine those two and then plant a chip in your head. I mean, it is a superpower if there was ever a superpower, right? Then you bring leadership into it. What are you leading now? Are you leading people that need to know anything? No. You now need to lead people based on a very different paradigm where work is different, money is different, technological socialism has taken shape where most things are free. We have now, as humanity, tried to find our purpose for the first time. And there was a lady there who said, I love what she said. She said, work is a shitty substitute for purpose. And most of us have made work our purpose. I'm the CEO of this, or I'm the chairman of that, I'm the leader of this. But this is not our human purpose, It's a great job that you're helping millions of people or thousands of people or making a lot of money or whatever the case may be. But that's not really purpose. That's not, it's what we've created as purpose.
So in your view, John, what is the purpose of humanity?
Wow, that's a hell of a big question. I mean, I think when we get more and more time to work with our right brain, the artistic side of who we are, the humanity side of who we are, I think the evolvement into really understanding ourselves a lot better, accessing power that we have, accessing deep spiritual understanding of how we are here, why we are here, how do we fit into the ecosystem that is the universe, with the ability to start traveling to other planets. I think this question of how we fit into this big picture will start becoming the topic of the day to really start discussing. When we move away from having to feed ourselves and to make sure we're earning enough money to pay our mortgages, when we're freed up, I wouldn't know what it is. I don't think anybody can tell us what it is, but I do think that it's a very positive and abundant future that we're moving towards, and giving us this ability to solve these grand challenges that are facing humanity at the moment. Technological improvements at this rate will really see poverty eradicated in the next 10 years. So this is the message that Singularity has. I know that a lot of people that I speak to and have my keynotes to always have a negative perception about the future, but I would challenge that those people have a negative perception of most things. So for me, it's about really being a positive and optimistic person about the future.
So John, which services will be free? You mentioned food, I assume.
So 7 things or 8 things. So first and foremost, if we look at the 3 main sectors that they're talking about, the first one, communication. If you look at communication already, if we just think about going into a free Wi-Fi zone and FaceTiming your family overseas with your picture and video for free. I mean, that's just how much it really costs. Where if you just think maybe even 5-6 years ago, Vodacom would have charged us $3 a minute for that, So communication, obvious. And that's before we have Facebook, Tesla, Virgin, Viasat, all of them blanketing the earth with the satellites and balloons. That's going to come in the next 5 years. The next one is energy. Solar power, wind power, and battery storage is becoming so very cheap that many countries are already running 100% on green energy. And we know that green energy, once you paid off the capital, it's free. So energy is next. Besides the fact that Bill Gates has now set up the Energy Coalition, where he's raised $40 billion with the brightest minds in the world to solve and bring free energy to humanity. So that's in the pipeline right now. The third one is transportation. Autonomous vehicles, electrically powered with no drivers. None of us have to own cars. Autonomous helicopters. These are all happening, And I often tell the audiences I speak to, just because you don't know they're happening doesn't mean they're not happening. They're all happening quite on a large scale. The fourth one is obviously then free education, because when you have free communication and free energy, obviously education becomes free. Then we can talk about free clothing, free food, free housing, and these will take a little bit longer. But if you think about it, if you have free energy, you can grow food for yourself. If you have free energy, you're able to desalinate water from the ocean for yourself. So this makes us very independent and not reliant on very much outside sources. So these three structures of free energy, free transportation, free communication really are a domino effect for the other free sort of technological socialism pillars that are going to start coming onto track.
So John, let's quickly go back to leadership. You mentioned AQ, agility quotient.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit?
Sure. So, most businesses innovate on two structures, the capability that they have and what their competition is doing. So most banks will say, as a bank, this is how good we're going to be and this is what we're going to do. And just because the other banks around us are also doing that, we're also going. So capability advantage and competitive advantage. This has to shift, because the future of what your consumer wants and how technology might disrupt your industry puts you at a very weak space. What you've got to be doing is being agile to the consumer's needs. And if that consumer tomorrow doesn't need your service because it's being disrupted by an app or whatever the case may be, what is the next step that you have? And if you're not being agile in your approach, if you're not rewarding agility, innovation, and experimentation, how is your organization going to even become ready for this new need state? So if you're in an adaptive, strategic space where you're adapting to the market, you've already lost. You've got to be preempting the market. And that starts off with understanding how to reward your employees differently. Because if you're rewarding them just based on profitability, you're not allowing experimentation. You're not allowing the ability for you to be agile moving forward. Agility is exactly the opposite of stability. And corporations and organizations are built for stability, because you want to get hyper efficient and you want to bring the product to the market in the same way as often as possible to cut costs. That is the death of your business. Hyper efficiency is exactly the opposite of hyper agility. And so it's just AQ. That's all they were saying. AQ is the new IQ and EQ.
Now, did they also touch on the future of retirement? As we are bound to grow older and older, what does the future of retirement hold, in your view?
So I think this idea, firstly, of what is retirement, this concept that we've had to work for 55 to 60 years, then to retire, is an old idea. Because what we are looking to do in the future is work 4 hours a day for 4 days a week. Whereas if you think about 80 years ago, our grandparents worked for 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. We are now working 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And if you just take that trajectory, we'll be sitting on 4 hours a day, 4 days a week. What do you need to retire from? When you're working in a space that you love, that you're not sitting in traffic for 45 minutes, that you are moving between projects that are all about what your highest excitement and passion are, all driven by your right brain, I don't think the concept of retirement will be there, because if you're working at that pace, you can be working for a very, very long time. Add to that CRISPR-Cas9, the new med tech, where you're able to go into your DNA and genome and replace any DNA that are faulty, that could cause you heart disease, diabetes, or cancer. Replace them with CRISPR-Cas9. Gives us the ability to now extend our lives by 30, 40 years. Add to that 3D bioprinting, which is happening in an extensive range where you can print any aspect of your body. Add to that technological socialism, this ability for free things. What are you retiring from? There's no need for that. There's a constant flow of creativity and purpose, which is really what we started off speaking about. Is we need to find this purpose, have the time to spend this purpose, be celebrated for finding our purpose, not making more money and not getting another job promotion and not creating another, billion-dollar business. That's not purpose. Purpose is finding what humanity is here for. And the truth be told is that when everything's available to everybody in humanity, you don't need to make all that money. There's no need for it. So that the construct of what's being measured is changing. And the celebration of the Ferrari and $1 billion almost seems crass. It seems like a teenage boy's goals,
Well, it looks like millennials are not really interested in that stuff anymore.
Well, I think we all are becoming less interested, and I think it's because we are maturing and it's accessible. Luxury is accessible to everybody these days, you know. So it's a dime a dozen, these sort of luxury items. And when you grow consciously and you grow to understand that the impact you're having is much more important to look at on a global scale, on a humanity scale, it becomes less important to have a very loud car and 15 watches. I mean, it becomes quite a pointless and ridiculous notion. And we obviously can see Trump being like that right now, and all of us laugh at him. And, you know, Trump in the 1980s was a poster child. We all wanted that. You know, you remember watching Wall Street. It was all about bigger, faster, bigger suits and all those sort of things. Today, it's changed. It's dramatically shifted to less is more. It's the quality of what we are trying to achieve, minimalism, anti-consumerism. These things are all happening on the fringes. And eventually, you know, fringe becomes popular notion. And so, obviously, Singularity University is in San Francisco, the hotbed and the birth of the green movement. So they're obviously on this edge of it. But you can see many cities around the world adopting riding only bicycles, having pets everywhere. That was another thing. America, planes have pets on them. You know, everybody, dogs all over planes. And it's this sort of symbiotic relationship with the environment around us. So I think it's shifting on a dramatic stage and a fully paradigm shift that's happening.
Can you maybe share some of the predictions that Ray Kurzweil made? And maybe also your insight on what is it that makes Ray such to be able to predict the future?
You know, Ray it was remarkable listening to him. Firstly, quite an introvert. I mean, I don't think he's a people's person by any means, but very calmly was speaking to us about the fact that the first time he interacted with technology was when he was 4, when he broke down his mother's typewriter to understand how he could put it back together. That was 4. At 6, he created his first virtual reality world where you would stick your head into this box that he created with levers and moving things, and it was the universe. At 14, he wrote a first white paper to understand intelligence and artificial intelligence that got accepted by the government, and he went to go meet the president of America at that stage. He's been a genius from a very, very young age. So I think he has this unbelievable sixth sense to understand what's coming, and he heads up the artificial intelligence world for Google. So he has resources second to none available to him. I think he's made many predictions. I mean, I think the stat is 86% of his predictions have come true so far. I don't know them specifically, but what I can tell you is that everything he speaks about is the fact that artificial intelligence will be the new electricity. Artificial intelligence will be attached to everything. Like today, electricity is attached to everything. We can't imagine any of even your toothbrush has got electricity attached to it, for God's sake. Pretty much everything does, right? He says artificial intelligence in the next 5 years will be attached to everything. So that it's becoming so much cheaper and easy to install into different products that artificial intelligence will create an environment called ambient intelligence, where everything will be speaking to everything, that will make our lives so much easier and give us the ability to focus on the real things. One example that he did give, which I loved, he said that when you take blockchain and artificial intelligence together, if we fast track 100 years and all cars are autonomous, you're sitting in your car and your car has its own IP address and its own personality, and you tell your car, listen, it's not your car, the car you're in. Say, listen, whatever his name, the car's Fred. Fred, I need to get to my destination really quickly. I'm going to give you $20 to get me there quicker. And because of blockchain and AI listening, that $20 will be immediately transferred to the car. The car will then, through blockchain and artificial intelligence and sensors, then speak to every other car on the road and give them each $1 to get out the way so that you can get to your destination quicker. Okay. That's the combination of artificial intelligence, sensors, networks, and blockchain.
Now, I believe it was Ray who coined the term singularity.
Yes.
Which I believe is the point in time when machines will be as capable as human intelligence.
Left brain capability, not right brain. So logical computation power, yes.
So obviously that's a worry for many people. In your view, will the machines take over?
So, you know, he definitely doesn't think so. But if you think about it, we have created many machines that are better and stronger than us. Look at a truck. It can carry much more than us. A plane can fly much further. In fact, we can't fly. So we've made many products that are better than us, and we are very comfortable working with them. They've made our lives better. I think that we need to look at it optimistically. And I know, obviously, Elon Musk has got a very anti sort of stance towards it. And to be honest with you, I don't know enough about it. What I do know is that artificial intelligence has made my life so far extremely comfortable. For example, Google Maps. That's very much an artificial intelligence sort of idea, getting me anywhere I want to go much quicker. So for me, 2029 is really the year that he's predicting that this is going to be happening, and the trajectory looks like it's on track, although the quantum people saying that it's actually going to be, might be sooner because of quantum computing and what's happening there. I think it's going to be very beneficial to us. And I hope that as technology starts growing, we as humanity understand new ways of dealing with it so that it never gets to that place where they could take over. But yeah, I mean, that's a very big question.
So it has a lot to do with leadership.
Absolutely. But you see, what I'm loving when I look at these tech companies is that their leaders are very conscious. I mean, look at the leader of Microsoft. Look at the leader of Google. Look at the leader of Facebook. Look at the leader. These people are very conscious in their approach of how they're going about helping humanity. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg, what did he give 90% of his wealth away to eradicate all disease on Earth? I mean, it's a very different character again, but going back to a 1980s billionaire. And imagine, I mean, 1980s billionaire was about girls, yachts, and clubbing. I mean, that's what, today the billionaires of the future, I mean, of the current, are very much about solving humanity's grand challenges. And I love that because it's almost like a conscious capitalist approach. And I think that's what's necessary, and I think that's where leadership's going.
So, John, looking back at that 1 week of exponential thinking, what's the one lesson you would like to leave us with? What's your one view about the future that we should consider?
You know, it put a absolute speed into my step about the future. It showed me how much quicker it was coming. And really all I can tell people continuously is you have to expose yourself to this future at a radical pace. Because if you're not being exposed to it, and you hear for the first time AI is the new electricity, it's because you haven't been exposing yourself, and that's what's going to be coming. It's going to be, you know, you have a choice. The tsunami's coming. You're either riding it as a surfer or you're getting crushed by it. And the reason you might getting crushed by it is because you haven't exposed yourself to it. And the reason you haven't exposed yourself to it is because your internal dialogue is saying that you're a victim of the future, not an architect. So it's a very psychological game, and we need to be exposing ourselves based on an optimistic approach. It's a radical time to be alive. It's an incredible time to have an opportunity for us to do some amazing things that we've never had the opportunity to do before. It really comes down to our own ability to look at this future in optimistic ways or in a negative way.
And tell us, John, last but not least, what does the future hold for John Sanei?
So I am very, very proud to be the first South African as a faculty member for Singularity University. I sent them my stuff about a month before I went to the course, and they had done their research with me, and I had spoken at an Autodesk conference, which happened to also be linked to the head of faculty at Singularity, who is an alumni for Autodesk, and he'd heard about what I'd done at Autodesk here in South Africa. And when I went for the interview, from all their research that they'd done, they decided that I was very much part and parcel of the Singularity faculty, and they congratulated me. I didn't even have the interview. They congratulated me, and now I am part of the faculty. I now sit on the same faculty as Peter Diamandis and Ray Kurzweil, and now will be invited to go and speak at the different seminars they have around the world and become part and parcel of the Singularity message being crossed around the world. So my future right now sits in living between New York and Cape Town and starting to really work on a global scale and to start impacting humanity in a much bigger and broader way, helping them become more courageous about the future and helping them dissect and contextualize trends in certain ways so everybody can create that bravery and the courage to ask these new questions about the future. And that's become kind of my life purpose at the moment. But the big news for me is the Singularity University faculty membership, which is just awe-inspiring and really privileged to be part of that.
So you're the first South African?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's one other African. So I think I'm the second African to be a faculty member. I think there's about 45 faculty members around the world. And I was accepted now about a month ago.
Well done. This
Thank
is
you very
a
much.
massive accomplishment.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you. It's good to have you back. And I want to thank you for leading us into the future, because I think that's what's on everybody's mind. And we need people like you to show us what's possible.
Yeah, I think it's important to not only speak about the future, but think about the psychology of the future. I think a lot of futurists, I often go to futurist talks, and I leave more bewildered than when I arrived. Because, you've told me about robotics, AI, and 3D printing and flying cars, and now what? I go back to my desk and I'm now even more scared than I was before I started watching the talk. And I think the combination of really getting to grips with the internal dialogue and the psychology becomes vitally important when you're thinking and talking about things that are so different to us. And as humanity, we don't like change. I mean, the truth is, as humanity, it's metabolically expensive for our brains to create new habits. And so if you don't tackle psychology and if you don't tackle that internal dialogue, the future becomes this very scary place. So I think, and thank you for that. I find myself very comfortable helping organizations ask questions about the future because I tackle it in a very specific way. Is let's talk about psychology and culture. Let's talk about categorizing the future. And let's make sure you understand what it means to your business and your sector. And how do you become agile in the questions you ask about what you're doing?
And I assume we can expect you to speak at the next Singularity event?
Yes. In South Africa, I'll be speaking at the one here. I've just asked to speak at a one overseas, but I'm already speaking at another event. So it's just a matter of time now for the momentum to catch. They have about 180 seminars a year around the world. They've opened up their third campus around the world now. I think Denmark, New Zealand, and another country. South Africa is in the process of setting that up, and they want to have campuses all around the world. So there'll be opportunities to lecture and teach and share on a global scale, helping people around the world become happy about the future and excited about it rather than scared.
And John, when is your next book coming out?
My next book is called Magnetize. It's about helping organizations find their purpose. It's about getting them to stop measuring profitability and start measuring purpose, start playing the long game. I call it macro patience and micro speed, as having this cathedral thinking and how they think about the future, building 100-year businesses, not quarterly businesses, which is what most businesses are doing these days. And so it should be out next year, June, July. I've already started writing it, and I'm very excited for it because magnetize is really what most organizations want to do, magnetize the best employees to them and magnetize consumers that don't leave them for life, or called super fans. So a lot of organizations ask me that, and I thought it was high time to actually put it down into a process and a framework of how to magnetize the future.
So it has a lot to do with building brand loyalty.
Brand loyalty and just becoming authentically transparent. Is becoming real about the value that you're bringing to the world and not being driven by profit. As consumers, we can smell a business that is running by profit only. We become very, very suspicious. And the only people that are enjoying quarterly profits are shareholders. Nobody else is enjoying it. People inside the businesses aren't enjoying it. Consumers aren't enjoying it. So employees and consumers are secondary, and the shareholders take first prize. That has to switch. And if you don't switch that, in a world of hyper-transparency, you can't fool people. In the old days you could, today you can't. And we buy from businesses that are aligned with our purpose. We don't mind making some money, but if you're making a lot of money, it's only going to be for a short while. And if you're not making no money, it's also not going to be for a long time. But if you're making a consistent amount of money, where your suppliers are being treated fairly, where your employees are being treated fairly, your consumers are being treated fairly, in a hyper-transparent way, your business will be here for 100 years. Why wouldn't it be?
So John, just to wrap up, I very much see you as a sage, sharing your wisdom, and I believe you have origins in Persia. Is that true?
Yeah, yes. My mom and dad are both Iranian or Persian, and they thought they'd get adventurous and come to Africa when I was about, I think, 3 or 6 months pregnant in my mom's tummy. My granddad is I wouldn't say famous, but a well-known storyteller in Iran, and my family says I take after him, and so the gift of storytelling, I think I've just gained through my grandfather's lineage, and I'm now sharing stories about the future and the Persian sort of, I guess, lineage around the depth of storytelling is very alive in my energy, and I could think of nothing more exciting to be doing than being on stage sharing short stories about the future.
Well, John, thank you so much. You are a blessing.
Thank you.
And you are a fountain of wisdom, if I may say.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the time.
And take care.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nick.